All right, so this is going to be a short lesson this week, but this is full of useful information that you can apply to your playing right away. And this is all around the blues and making your blues sound better when you improvise. I know how frustrating it is to just sound like you're playing scales. I mean, I was in that world for many years, just playing pentatonic scales. That's all I knew, really. And I didn't know how to make it sound better. I hear other players doing it, and I didn't know how to do that. And so what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to take two very simple concepts. We're going to take triads, basic triads that you already know, and we're going to put those inside of your major and minor pentatonic scale in a way that maybe you haven't thought of before. This is sort of new to me anyway. I've been playing for over 30-something years, 35 years, and I hadn't really seen it this way. So I think this will be helpful. And what this will allow you to do is sound like you're playing, well, not sound like, you will be playing the chord tones as the chords pass by. It gives you a little more thought out, professional sounding lead instead of just sort of fumbling around in a scale. You kind of know where you're going. So I've got some extra materials that go with this lesson. There's a song, a very simple, short little song that sort of demonstrates everything we're going to talk through, and an MP3 jam track, which is just me strumming guitar. It's not a very elaborate jam track, but it allows you to practice everything we're going to talk about with the tab. You can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML116. Okay, so everything we're going to be doing in this is on the top 3 strings. And by top, I mean pitch, not location. I'm just mentioning that because that's come up in the past. So strings 1, 2, and 3. Finished strings. And we're going to be looking at a blues in the key of A. And I'm just picking the key of A because it's right in the middle of the fretboard and it looks good on video. You can do what we're going to talk about in any key. This is not limited to anything specific. There's no open strings in this. It's all closed position. So the first thing I need to do if I'm going to play in the key of A is I need to find my A note on the first string. So I come up here to the 5th fret, hit that. That's my A note. That means if I bar on that 5th fret and I make the E shape here with these fingers, I'm playing an A chord using that E shape from the cage system. Now all I need are the top 3 strings, right? And I don't need to make the bar, I just need this. So that's our first little bearing, is to get this triad. That's going to be your A major triad. Okay, so that's bearing number 1, your 1 chord. Now, we're going to add some notes to this, and I want you to see that this triad lives inside of your major pentatonic scale and your minor pentatonic scale in one position. And so you're just going to have to bear with me. Some of this is not going to make sense at first, but it will as we get into it. So the first thing we're going to look at is our A minor pentatonic scale. Even though that's a major chord, check this out. This will be pattern 1 of your minor pentatonic scale, just the top 3 strings. You already know this one, right? So that's the top 3 strings of your minor pentatonic scale in that position. Just look at where that triad, that major triad, lives inside of that. Right? So that's your minor pentatonic scale. Your major pentatonic scale in the same neighborhood would be pattern 2. So this would be your A major pentatonic scale, pattern 2. It looks like this. So it also has these same 2 notes on this 5th fret. But now it has that, which would be your major 3rd of your chord. So now I've got A minor pentatonic scale, A major pentatonic scale, and then my A triad. And all of those things are in the same neighborhood here. Now, if I were to take just that, and I can bend some of these notes. Actually, I can bend most of these notes. Let me just show you which notes you can bend real quick, just so you can make a quick note of this. You may need to pause the video, but on your minor pentatonic scale, the notes here from my vantage point would be on the right side. So this 8th fret, strings 1 and 2, and then the 7th fret 3rd string. You can do a full bend on any of those. Those are all full bend. By full bend, I mean you can take that starting note and go up 2 frets. So that's the note you're trying to hit. That's what a full bend means. On the inside notes, this 7th fret 1st string, you can do a full bend on that one. For your major pentatonic, it's going to give you more of a major sound, or you can do a half bend on it. If you do a half bend, it comes up to this note, which is in your minor pentatonic scale. So that's why it sounds a little more sad, I guess. Same thing is true on the 2nd string. You can only, though, do a half bend on this one. So this one, you can do a half bend. So those are your bendable notes. Now I want to show you what you can do with just that information. Using this triad as sort of my anchor, I want to show you how I can improvise just off of that A chord and make it sound pretty cool. So check this out. Now I'm just messing around off of this triad. Notice I slid into strings 2 and 3 out of the triad. There's strings 1 and 2 out of that triad. I've got my minor pentatonic scale. If I want it to sound more bluesy, or I've got my major pentatonic scale and I've got them all in one area. I know which notes I can bend. And I can start to play the blues just with that information. Now, it starts to get way cooler than that though. So that's just the 1 chord. So check this out. When it comes to the 4 chord, we're gonna stay in this same neighborhood here. We don't wanna move all over the fretboard. So if that's my 1 chord, my nearest 4 chord, which would be a D, is right here. That's a D chord using the A shape. But we're only playing the top 3 strings, so all I need is this. This triad. You've played this triad before, right? So there's my 1 chord, there's my 4 chord. Now what I can do with this is where it starts to get really cool. So check this out. If I add my pinky to that 8th fret 1st string, I'm now playing a D7. You could do it like this too if you want to change your fingering, but that's a D7, right? If I play just the bar there on the 7th fret, that's a D6. And if I move that down 2 frets and play a bar here, that's a D9. So I've got a D6, a D9, and a D7, or D flat 7, D dominant 7. I've got all of those sounds off of this shape. Now I know somebody's going to get confused off of this 1 bar here because that's a minor triad. Some of you have already picked up on that. Wait, how is that minor triad a 6 chord and how is it a 9 chord? It's because inside of a D9, here's a D9, listen to it. And see, that part is inside of your D9. So what I'm getting at is this is the flat 7, this is the 9, and that's the 5 of a D9. It does not have a root, it does not have a third, it doesn't need them. If the jam track's already doing all that stuff, I can just play this much and that's going to represent the sound of a D9. Same with the D6. That's not all the notes of a D6, but it's enough of it to matter, to represent the sound. That's a huge takeaway. Write that idea down or do whatever you've got to do to remember it. You don't have to play the root note of a chord to give the sound or the color of a chord. You don't even have to play the third. You can play just some of the notes of the chord. So if I wanted to, for the D, if I wanted to just play strings 3 and 4, which would be the 3rd and the flat 7. That could be my D7. That could sound like a D7. It's missing the root, it's missing the 5, but it's got enough, especially with the jam track. So anyway, off of this triad, this D triad, you've got your dominant 7, which is right here. You've got your 6 and your 9. And you can see where that all is in relation to this A shape. When I play that A shape, I've got 1 finger on the 5th fret, 1 on the 7th fret. And when I barred, I was on the 7th fret and the 5th fret. So you can kind of connect that. That's all we're going to learn in terms of information. That's it. We're going to do everything with that information. Because when it comes to the 5 chord, all I do is I take my 4 chord information and just move it up 2 frets. This is my E, right? So E is your 5 chord. There's my E7, E6, E9. And back to D. And then back to my 1. All right, so now I'm going to play a very simple jam track. It's actually just a loop of me playing guitar. I'm going to be playing a 1-4-5 in the key of A. But I want to demonstrate all of these ideas and sort of talk through them in real time so that you can start to see how this stuff fits together. Okay, we're starting off with the 1 chord. Let's start off and just play the triads. So here's my A. Notice I'm sliding into it. Here's my D. Back to the A. Here's the E. Back to my A. Now let's add in some of those major pentatonic scale licks. Here's the 4 chord. There's that flat 7. Here's my E chord. Back to my A. Now when it's the 4 chord and the 5 chord, I can still play any of those notes from my major and minor pentatonic scale of the key of the song. So just keep that in mind. Here's the D. See what I'm talking about? Now here's the 5 chord. Watch this. So notice I'm playing those major minor pentatonic scale notes blended for the 5 chord, the 4 chord, and the 1 chord. There's the flat 7 of the 1. Now watch this. There's the 6 to the 9. Just playing strings 2 and 3 of the 1. 6 to the 9 of the 5. Now let's start to put it all together with a little half bends. Here's the 4 chord. Okay, so here's a point that I forgot to make when you're going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, and this could be a huge light bulb for a lot of you. This certainly blew my mind when I realized it. So if we think of our 1 chord as being this triad here, right? This A major triad. Remember when we went to the 4 chord, one of our options was this, right? For the D9 sound, right? It was that sound. But look at what that is. If you think about it in a literal sense, that's an A minor. So think about that. For your 1 chord, you have your A major. For your 4 chord, you can play your minor 1 chord. You can play that triad. And that can represent your 4 chord. Now that may be confusing to some of you, and if it is, just forget what I'm talking about. But to me, that was a huge deal to realize that I could play for my 1 chord. And then when I go to the 4 chord, I could just play the minor 1, or just that little triad there. Anyway, that's all that is. That's also your D9. It just depends on how you want to think of it. Obviously, that applies to any key. You can take your 1 chord and just flat the 3rd, and that sound can represent your 4 chord. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this. And remember, I do have a little tabbed out version of that with that MP3 jam track, just me sort of strumming the guitar, so you can practice playing along with that. It's very short. It's not like a super elaborate thing. If you like this lesson and you've got some ideas, leave a comment. That's always helpful to me. It's helpful to other people. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave a question there. I do read through all the comments and try and respond. All right, we'll see you next week for something new.